And it's funny because we're just not used to in our society kindness and people giving.
Mm-hmm.
And so first it's kind of like, okay,
what's the catch?
What's really going on here? And it's like, no, we wouldn't be, we need people like you and appreciate all you do. And here's a cup of coffee on me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, and you kind of see that light like, oh, this is actually just somebody trying to be kind.
Mm-hmm. Hey friend, welcome to the Growing Kindness Podcast. I'm your host, Deanna Kitchen, founder of the Growing Kindness Movement. This is a place where we grow together, learning to root our lives in kindness, connection, and community. If you've ever wished the world felt a little softer, a little more neighborly, or if you're craving stories that remind you that goodness still grows, you're in the right place. Together with our guests, we'll share stories of generosity and community, proof that even the smallest acts of kindness, from growing and giving cut flowers to everyday acts of care, can change lives and connect us in powerful ways. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get started. This season is made possible by Heirloom Roses, our Season 2 sponsor. We're deeply grateful for their generosity that helps carry the Growing Kindness mission forward and makes these stories possible. Before we jump into the podcast today, I want to personally invite you to something really special that's happening soon. If you've ever listened to this podcast and thought, man, I wish I could just sit around a table with people like this, that's exactly what the Growing Kindness Retreat is all about. So for 2 days this August, we'll gather together here in beautiful Skagit Valley of Washington with the same kind of people who you've come to know through this podcast. People who care deeply about kindness and connection and showing up for others. People who are honest and real and vulnerable. We'll spend our days immersed in flowers and beautiful gardens, sharing meals around the table, creating with flowers together, and having those kind of honest conversations that remind you that you are not alone. Every time I finish recording one of these conversations, I wish that all of us could just keep on talking. And that's really what the retreat has become, an opportunity to extend the conversations and further the connections. So if you've been feeling a little weary, if you've been longing to slow down, to immerse yourself in flowers and beauty and rest, to create something with your hands, and to spend time with people who just get it, I'd love to save you a seat at the table. You can learn more and reserve your spot using the link in the show notes below. I truly hope that I get to see you here in August. Over the past, I think it's been 9 months, 10 months of the podcast, you've gotten to hear some truly inspiring stories, people's lives who've been changed by growing and giving flowers. You've gotten to be front seat and hear more of the history of how this organization got started and hear more of my story. But there is a story that you've never gotten to hear yet. And it's one that I am so excited to get to share with you today. Growing Kindness has been a nonprofit organization for almost 7 years now and an organization for almost 8. And quietly behind the scenes, every step of the way, there has been a person who has helped logistically, emotionally, in every way to bring this mission and organization and community to life. And I get to bring his story to you today. It's a story that I'm really excited to share. I have my Kleenex piled up beside me because I know I'm probably not going to get through this without a few tears because our stories are so intertwined and we both have such a big heart for this mission. And so today I am really excited to get to introduce you to Shane Kitchen, my husband, who has been along for every part of the ride, but quietly behind the scenes, and his story and his perspective you've never gotten to hear until today. Welcome to the podcast, Shane.
Well, thanks, Deanna.
All right. So let's just start out with helping people get to know a little bit about who you are. And maybe we'll share a little bit about our backstory together and how on earth we ended up landing on founding a nonprofit organization. So let's start out with you telling us a little bit more about you.
Yeah. So I grew up over on the Olympic Peninsula, a couple hours from where you grew up.
Yep.
And we were in the same county, even though there was miles and miles between us. Yeah, it was kind of a rural way of growing up. Grew up on a small cattle farm. We raised hay and cows, and there was 5 kids and mom and dad. So There's 7 of us, and
8 kitchens, right?
yeah.
8 kitchens in that old farmhouse.
Yeah. So anyhow, my mom and dad still live there. It was just a really neat way to grow up. We had horses, and in high school, I did kind of jobs that weren't your typical. I mean, for there, they were pretty normal, but for I would say your average
15, 16-year-old.
Yeah, they were. So it was in the summers, we'd go around at other farms after we put in our own hay, and we'd help other farmers hay. And then we did some commercial fishing and did some land clearing. And in fact, both my brothers live on some of the property that we spent our teenage years clearing and grading. And so, yeah, they were able to build their houses there. And so they still live there right across the road from the farm. So that kind of led me into a career path of construction. And about a week after I graduated, I loaded up and headed off. And I had a big goal, and that was that I wanted to marry my high school sweetheart, which was you. And in order to do that, I had this idea in my head that I had to have a house. And so I wasted no time. I graduated from Chimacum High School, and there's probably like 40 some kids in the class, very small school, and headed off to the big city and got a job in construction and bought our first house and asked you to marry me. And just a lot happened between 18 and 20 years old. So.
We were not typical 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds by any long shot. So I guess you mentioned we grew up in the same county, which is how our stories came together. And honestly, we laugh because we're like, I don't know if it gets much countryer than this. But we actually, because we were in the same county, even though we were like 2.5 hours apart, I think we ended up showing animals at the same county fair. So like Shane said, they raise Black Angus cattle. So we showed sheep too for a while. So sheep and cattle. And then I was absolutely horse obsessed. So I had a horse that I showed at the county fair. So that is actually where, in a very roundabout way, where growing kind of started, because that's where our story started. And our story is kind of the beginning of it in a way. But yeah, so we were at the county fair. I was showing horses. He was showing cows. We both actually had like a crush on each other, but neither of us had the guts to actually like have a conversation. So I think it was a couple days into the fair when you had figured out that my little brother was also showing a cow in the cow barn. And pretty quickly, my little brother Danny had a new best friend who was buying him ice cream and taking him on rides and teaching him how to rope. And so that was kind of actually, like, you actually literally roped me with a rope because you were teaching Danny how to rope. And I remember I would walk by with a group of girls, and I remember you kind of egging Danny on, like, you should rope her. And so he tried to heel my foot and he missed. And then you literally roped me. And then, of course, you have to get the rope back. So, like, that started a conversation. So that is actually the beginning of our story.
Yeah, it was the beginning of our dating story.
Or the beginning of our dating story, yeah.
We'd met a few years earlier, and at that time, I think we were like 15 years old, and that was a point in my life, like, 15-year-old, definitely not thinking about marriage. At that point in my life, I thought that I wanted to be a bull rider and ride the rodeo circuit. I met you that night in the parking lot, and it was kind of weird because when me and my buddy drove away, I thought, man, if I ever get married, I think I want to marry that gal. And it's just like, people might think I'm making that up. It's just what it was. It was like, I don't know what it was. And then it was a couple years later. And then
that you roped me at the county fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can remember. It took me a while to actually register that you did actually like me and were interested, because I thought you were out of my league, which is funny because then come to find out later on.
Oh, you were out of my league for sure. There was no way you'd be interested in me.
But so then, like, after the roping incident, like, this is as country as it gets. So Shane had invited me. He bought pit tickets, wait for it, for the mud bogs, which was like 4-wheel drive trucks rallying in mud in the middle of the arena at the county fair. So pit tickets were more expensive than like the regular tickets. And so it was the night before the last day of the fair, and you'd bought them, and you invited me if I wanted to sit with you, but I couldn't because I had barn duty. So I had to be like back at the horse barn at a certain time, like right in the middle of it. And that was when I clued in that like you actually kind of like me, because forfeited the tickets to sit with me.
Yeah, those were probably $5 a piece tickets. So I probably walked away from $10 to hang out with you and a bunch of little girls and some puppies.
Which that was, okay, now you have to explain that part of the story.
Yeah, so Deanna, I mean, you've always loved kids. I mean, you started out in education. Mm-hmm. That's what you went to college for. And your first few years of our marriage, you were a teacher, kindergarten of all things. So yeah, you definitely like kids. And you always at the fair, you always had a group of young girls around you from the horse barn, and you were a good mentor to them. And I think I was attracted to that also, is just that your care for the kids in the 4-H program and trying to teach them the ways. And so one of the kids happened to have a bunch of puppies too to add to the chaos. So I can't remember if it was my truck or somebody else's, but I remember we just sat there in the back of a pickup
puppies and kids everywhere.
And kids everywhere. And, who knows, I might have had a little thought at that time, like, yeah, maybe someday we could be married and have kids, I mean, I'd obviously a couple of years ago thought if I was to get married, you would be the one. So.
Which I think, all this whole entire story, I guess we are really an anomaly in a lot of ways. I don't think that there's a lot of people that meet in high school and fall in love and actually are compatible in the way that we've been. But that was the beginning of our story. So we both kind of came from these like rural roots and just deep communities where connection was just such a part of the community. I mean, it was the fiber of the community. But also, I think we both came from families where that was really deeply valued as well. And so that kind of laid the groundwork for us, in the beginning of our story, which again, ultimately was the beginning of the story of Growing Kindness, essentially. Because if it wasn't for us, there wouldn't be a Growing Kindness. And I guess that's what I kind of want to get to highlight a little bit more today, because I've gotten to be, I guess, more, you say more the face of the mission and being the founder. And it was in the beginning, it was this vision and dream and idea that I had, but really it's because it's kind of built on these principles and values that we had in starting our life together and our family and our marriage, that this just kind of Growing Kindness was almost like an extension of those things. And so what I guess I'm really excited to do today is to get to share more of what that's been like for you, as our story has evolved and this mission has grown. I mean, it's hard, it's wild to think that it's going to be 8 years as an official organization this year, 7 years, December. I think it's December 20th, I believe, is when we have our 7-year anniversary as a nonprofit. But all of that kind of built on this idea that we both deeply value community and people taking care of each other. And then that's just snowballed into this today.
I would say that in the last 7-8 years that it has helped to grow that in my life too, is maybe you were a little bit more conscious of that and wanting to be in community and help others. And I definitely was on board, but I know for myself that being a part of this project has definitely helped me to grow in that in my own life.
Yeah. Can you talk more about that? What ways has growing and giving flowers impacted you and maybe even influenced you or changed you as a person?
Well, it's for me, giving flowers, it just wasn't something I ever really thought about doing. Mm-hmm. I didn't see or think about the impact that it would be on other people. Mm-hmm. Both, I think part of that was the positive influence it could be on the person giving, and then the positive effect that can have on the person receiving. So it kind of is like a two-part deal. It's not just for one side or the other. It's for both sides. But for me, it wasn't something I really was aware of the effects that it could have on people. Mm-hmm. And so watching it and seeing what it's done and to people as far as the positive effect it's had on both the people giving and the people receiving has definitely helped me to grow in that and really step out of my comfort zone and be willing to give and to give flowers, which is, I don't know, especially probably the way I grew up. That's definitely not, I would say I never really was very comfortable giving flowers. Even when I'd buy you flowers at the store, I didn't really want anybody seeing me walk out with them for some reason, because I thought it would make me not look masculine or something. I don't know. But it's been a cool journey and seeing that both men and women enjoy getting flowers. And I think we see in the organization a lot more, well, for sure, we see it's a lot more women
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's cool that we have all sons and they've seen it. And even though, they're young men and they sometimes grudgingly go along and other times they're more into it. But I think long term, they're going to look back and they're not going to be afraid to give flowers. I know like our oldest son, Eli, I've seen him lots of times put together some really nice arrangements to give to girlfriends and girlfriends' moms. But still, like, it's impressive to see an 18-year-old boy go out in the dahlia field and cut a bouquet and put it all together. So yeah, I think a lot of times with kids is you got to realize that you don't always see the effects today.
Yeah.
But I think you'll see them as life goes on.
I mean, that is actually a huge topic that you kind of opened up, which is I think that there is so much stigma in our culture around that you can't be soft and strong, and that nurturing people or like even just flowers in and of themselves are somehow there's exclusivity to women only. But really, like what you found and what we're seeing with our kids is like, which honestly, I guess I just want to say thank you for being willing to like step into a place of discomfort to kind of question that stereotype and like that attitude around that, like, this isn't manly or this isn't something, that a strong man does or whatever, but instead to say that like strength is softness, like strength is tenderness, like strength is nurturing people, and flowers are just, they're a tool that everybody enjoys, men or women alike, like, so thank you. I guess I just want to say thank you for like being willing to walk in a place of that feeling like new and hard and maybe uncomfortable at times, but like being willing to challenge that. It's really cool to get to watch that like growth and change in you, but also as a parent, especially as a mom of young men, to see that like you challenge that conversation for them too. And like, that's easier for them than it was for you. And I hope, something that we've always talked about that we valued as parents and always wanted for our kids is that they would like understand that strength is tenderness, right? Like strength is caring for people and that they would feel empowered, like I guess we always talked about, we wanted kids who are kind and curious, like that they would be willing to be lifelong learners and that they could step into situations where they would have a heart and an eye to see other people and be willing to respond in like whatever ways it is. And I think this like opportunity that they've had to get to watch you embrace that and lead in that like has had a huge influence on them. Okay, so if you were talking to the men and the audience, who I think is actually, I think our audience
might only be one of you.
I think the audience on the podcast is also predominantly women, which I would love to see that change, wouldn't you? Flowers are for everybody, right? It's interesting because growing flowers used to be like all the guys did it. Like at what point did we say like flowers are for girls, or giving flowers can only be like something that girls do, like nurturing and caring for people and reaching out to people in that way? Like what would you say to any guys who are listening today about just like the process of being willing to step into that kind of discomfort of like reaching out and caring for people by giving flowers?
Yeah, I'd just say if you can get past that, and I mean, I still struggle with it at times. I think you just have like a picture of who you think would want flowers maybe. And so just one quick story is I remember when we first moved up to the farm that we're at now, and we have a neighbor across the road, and he's a man's man, you could say.
he's an old fishing captain, and he's a little salty.
Yeah, a little salty. He wouldn't really wave at us or anything. And Deanna, you picked a bouquet of dahlias and headed off across there. And I thought, wow, the nerve to go do that was beyond what I could do. Like, that's the thing is like, I might think I'm a kind of a tough guy, but there is no way I was going to pick a bouquet of flowers and go across the field and give them to the neighbor. And you did. And turns out he grows dahlias. And ever since then, we have a great relationship with him. And now we wave at each other, and they were at our house for dinner last night. It's just like, I did not see that coming. So I would say, be willing to step out of your comfort zone. And you'll realize that people appreciate it. And it maybe isn't always the person that I think in my mind, it's always giving a nice old lady some flowers, like that's who's going to want flowers. But I've seen time and time again, men that really appreciated flowers. And And then the long-term care centers, like it opens the door to conversation. And, the generation that's there now is a tough generation, and they have a lot of good stories. And yeah, if you got the time, it's always worth it. So, and you can learn a lot. So I would say be willing to step out of your comfort zone.
Have you ever had any experience where it wasn't worth it, or has it been worth it every time?
No, I haven't actually.
Do you feel like, would you say it gets easier and easier, like the process of giving flowers or even the process of approaching strangers? It's been really cool for me to get to kind of witness the ways that like you'll come home and share a story of something that happened in Costco parking lot or something that happened at the gas station, of ways that I get to see you stepping into that like place of discomfort of like reaching out to help people. But would you say it gets easier and easier the more you practice it?
Yeah. So in full honesty, like the stepping out to help people, that has gotten way easier. Like I'm totally comfortable with seeing a need and helping or asking, do you need help? But as far as giving flowers, I'd still say I always want you there when I'm giving flowers. So yeah, I don't know why that is. And I'm sure someday I'll get beyond that. But
maybe it's like everything else. Like, how they say that there's like a number of like minutes that you have to have practiced something to reach mastery. Maybe there's this number of bouquets you have to give, Shane, to where it'll be like, where you don't have to like have that pause and think about it, which actually, if I'm being fully honest and transparent, I still have to pause and get past that little moment of like, are they going to want these? Are they going to think I'm a weirdo? Am I going to make them uncomfortable? Which I guess that's probably the power of flowers, is it disarms all of that, in the moment that you hold them out. Like, I think people instantly see the care and the intention, but it's still, I should say even for me, and I've given hundreds and hundreds of bouquets of flowers. Like, even for me, I still have a moment where I have to kind of like push past that little bit of discomfort.
I kind of laugh because I try to hide behind you, even though I can't because I'm bigger than you are. But even just, I think it was last weekend or maybe the weekend before, but we were down in this little community, and Deanna, you brought flowers down, and we pull in and you're like, I want to go over to that house over there. I think those people live there full time, and I want to give them these flowers. And I'm like, because even now I'm still kind of like, what if they don't want them? What if they think we're weirdos or whatever? And I head over there with you, and in true Shane fashion, I'm trying to sort of look like I'm going with you, but not going with you, like ready to split the other way if need be. And so we walk up to the house, and I'm kind of hanging back enough that if it doesn't go well, I can just sort of duck behind a rhododendron and get the heck out of there. And
you wouldn't really know.
No, but still, like, it's kind of like that. I'm here, but I'm not here. And then the lady of the home she came out. Of course, at first it's kind of like, oh, and you hand her the flowers and say, these are for you. And like instantly the smile on her face and the come on in, and we go in their house and meet her husband and have a nice conversation. And yeah, it opens doors for sure.
Like literally at times.
Doors.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been
doors and conversation.
And I think doors within ourselves, even like that kind of creates like an openness to, like you said, like you get more and more comfortable with kind of letting the walls down and letting people in, or like getting closer to people.
Yeah. And I think we all probably know this, but stepping out of our comfort zone and doing things that we're not always comfortable in always built us. Like, it helps us to understand more about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It has a positive effect on us. I honestly can't think of a time of stepping out of my comfort zone where I didn't, or if wished I hadn't,
Mm-hmm.
It helps. It definitely helps us to see ourselves.
Yeah, honestly, quite the opposite. Like, I can remember specific times where I could have done something or could have said something and I regret not. Like, I can remember one time in particular, you and I, this was years ago. This was before we had kids even. So like 19, 20 years ago? We were pulling up at Hagen's grocery store. It was dark. It was rain. It was pouring down rain. And we were going past the entrance, and there's this little old woman who was pushing her grocery cart through the pouring rain. She had one of those, I don't feel like anybody ever wears them anymore, but remember the little like plastic rain hoods that like, I think women of that generation, they like would protect their curls. Anyway, she had one of those on and she was pushing past. And I think we both looked at each other and said like, we should help her. And then both in the same breath, I think we had that like, that's going to be weird. Like we're approaching her in a dark parking lot. She's going to think we're weird. Like we might scare her. I think it was really easy to justify like, let's like that would be too weird. It'll end up making her feel uncomfortable. When really, I think probably our fear was like, we're going to get placed in a moment of discomfort and we can be fine with that. But I just think about that moment still today. I still remember her and wish I would have done something to help. So I agree with you completely. I think that there's so many times where like we never look back at and regret having stepped into a place of discomfort and tried helping. We always regret when we didn't.
Yeah. And even if it's not always warmly received, or maybe it doesn't even happen, you feel better leaving knowing that you tried, right? than the looking back, wishing you had. I had a moment like that I still to this day bugs me. As I was in Costco and getting the gingerbread houses kits for the kids, and this man came up behind me and clearly was not in a good financial place and was wondering where they were at. And I can't remember exactly. I feel like...
Didn't he comment on the cost or something? I feel like you were telling me that story.
Something like that. And basically, in that moment, I thought I should just buy these and then just give them to him. And then I was like, oh, you might think that's weird or something. And to this day, I wish I could go back and redo that. I would have just... because his little kids are with him and I don't think he can afford them. And so yeah, those are the things you regret, is when you just didn't do anything at all, or you talked yourself out of it. One thing Growing Kindness has done for me, because I will say, I mean, I've already said it, but sometimes giving the flowers is harder. But like one time I went and bought a bunch of gift cards, like $10 coffee gift cards, because that's about what it costs to buy a coffee.
I know.
And so what I did is I set him in the center console of my rig. And then if I was at the gas station or something and I saw a first responder, I'd just go over there and just give him a coffee gift card. And it's funny because we're just not used to in our society kindness and people giving. And so first it's kind of like, okay,
what's the catch?
What's really going on here? And it's like, no, we wouldn't be, I mean, we need people like you and appreciate all you do. And here's a cup of coffee on me. And it's like, oh, and you kind of see that light, like, oh, this is actually just somebody trying to be kind. Yeah, those experiences are awesome. So I definitely encourage people in any way that they can to do that. And, the thing about the flowers is it's like, I shouldn't say anybody, but most people can find flowers to pick and get. I mean, think about like little kids, even at an early age. I mean, I remember going out in the cow pasture and they were probably growing out of cow poop. And I would cut my mom flowers and take my mom flowers. And it was probably the most pathetic looking dandelion bouquet you ever seen. But as a parent now, knowing what that would mean to me, like it's just knowing that somebody cares. It's huge. It impacts lives way more than we even can imagine.
Well, there's certainly a first time for everything. And typically on this podcast, we normally host our podcast interviews in one episode. However, this conversation with Shane ended up taking so many just beautiful twists and turns and went so deep that we couldn't just wrap it up and smash it all into one episode. And that is why I'm so excited to share with you that we're going to be bringing you the second half of this conversation in our next episode. As if I couldn't love Shane anymore, getting to sit down like this and hear more of his heart and his perspective. I'm so grateful for the opportunity we had to have this conversation. And I hope that maybe after listening today, you can see a little bit more about why I married the guy and why I think he's so great, but also why he's been just such a key part behind the scenes, quietly supporting and helping bring this mission forward. And in our next part of our conversation, we actually dive right into more of what it took to actually grow Growing Kindness and kind of the quiet cost and the unexpected turns that it took. And so I really hope that you will tune in our next episode to hear the second half of this conversation. Thank you so much for listening to the Growing Kindness podcast. If today's episode encouraged you, there are a few simple ways to keep growing kindness with us. First, you can join the team. When you become a Growing Kindness gardener, you link arms with like-minded, like-hearted people from all around the world who believe that small acts of kindness really do make a big difference. To learn more or join the team, visit growingkindnessproject.org/gardener. Thanks to the generosity of our donors, membership is free. Another way to get involved is to become a donor. The Growing Kindness movement and this, our podcast, are made possible by the generosity of our donors, kind-hearted people who believe, just like you, kindness matters. If you'd like to support the movement, visit growingkindnessproject.org/donate to make a gift and keep kindness blooming. And finally, if this episode touched your heart, would you share it with a friend? It's one of the simplest ways to spread kindness today. I'm so grateful you're here. Until next time, keep growing kindness. one bloom at a time. This podcast is made possible in part by Her Connection Hub, a female-focused co-working space in Bellingham, Washington, who generously provides the studio space where these conversations are recorded.